Greetings, my name's Andrew Sumner. My grandfather, Pop Smythe, bought me my first comic book in Liverpool, England, when I was 3 years old, and I spent the next 50 years hurtling around the pop culture kaleidoscope, first as a fan, and then as a journalist, editor, publisher and presenter. Along the way, I met a bunch of interesting people who will be joining me here, creators, performers, professionals and public servants. We live in divisive, fractured times, but art and popular culture connect people from all viewpoints and from all walks of life. I'm often struck by the passions people enjoy, that they can set aside their differences for and agree on whatever those passions are, whether I share them or not. And that spark, that moment of instinctive, connective agreement, that's what I call a hard agree.
There is so much happening with my hair for literally...
Well done for understanding what I was saying through my Merseyside accent, by the way, because that I often get people going, her, what are you talking about?
What is her?
What is her?
I don't know what her is.
And because most English people say, I can't even say it. This word defeats me. Most English people say her, right? But if you come from Merseyside, you say her, and you say her over there with the her in exactly the same way. Yeah, it's the same like slurred vowel sound. But I frequently say that word to English people and Americans, and they don't understand me. So I'm glad that you did. That's good.
Well, I mean, now I speak fluent Sumner, so we're good. We're good. So since high school, I have been coloring my hair because I was a very bullied kid. I was a very outcast kind of kid. I didn't have a lot of friends. And so whenever I grew up and kind of grew into myself, one of the ways to make myself feel better about who I was and to make myself different from all the normies out there is I would color my hair. So I've been pink, I've been blue, green, purple, pink, all kinds of things. And unfortunately, during the pandemic, right before the pandemic, I, as you well know, was supposed to get married in May. Yep. And in order to get the exact blue that I wanted for my wedding, I needed to re-bleach all of my hair. And, I paid a lot of money to get completely rebleached and to have a level set to get the perfect blue. And then literally 2 weeks after I got my hair rebleached, the pandemic hit. And so I just stayed blonde all throughout the pandemic. And unfortunately, that made my hair start falling out. So now I have all these patches of hair that have cut off. And due to that, I am now spending an outrageous amount of money having my hair healed and having it corrected. And for the first time since high school, I am now all brunette again, which is very weird. But that's where we're at in life. It's terrifying. I mean, you look down in the shower and there is a giant clump of hair. And you're like, where did that come from? Oh, my head. This is really scary. And it's definitely not something that I thought I would experience at 32 years old, but here we are. And now I'm on this hair journey. I actually have a hair sponsor who is one of my hairstylists, and I call her when I feel like I am freaking out and wanting to put blue back on my hair and wanting to rebleach. I just call her and she says, no, put it down, walk away. You're fine.
Yeah. Mate, I got to tell you, though, the brunette really, really suits you. It looks fucking awesome.
Thank you very much. I actually do feel really good about it. And for what it's worth, Mr. Sumner, your hair might be falling out in white, but you are more handsome than the day I met you. So. Oh,
yeah, you're too kind.
What does that mean?
Bring it on. Keep on spinning. Which, in fact, that's as good a time as any to say, my name's Andrew Sumner. Welcome to Hard Agree. And I am here with the woman, the myth, the legend, the VP of licensing and merchandise for Legion M Productions, which we'll talk about in a moment. But most importantly, one of my closest friends in the world, the ultimate Mandy Bardisbanian. It's so awesome to see you, man. Thanks for joining me on the show.
Hello, world. And thank you so much for having me on, Sumner. This is an absolute pleasure and an honor. Hey, everybody out there in the wavelengths. It's awesome to meet all of you. And please find me on social media at Mandy Bardisbanian. I would love to talk to you as well.
And I'm telling you right now, Mandy B is a conversation you will always want to have. Do you know how long we've known each other for, mate?
No, I was actually thinking about that. And I think it's been 9 years at this point, a little over 9 years, because I I was a receptionist at the Hot Topic corporate office, and I started in 2012, May of 2012. So I think I met you that year. And
I met you that year, and I think very, very shortly after you'd started. True story, you are the first person I ever met at Hot Topic head office. Fact, that was you.
That's incredible. And you know what I will say as well is not only were you successful meeting with the buyers and selling to the Hot Topic corporate office, but you became literally everyone's best friend, confidant, mentor, party goer, party planner, you became the center of our world at Hot Topic. You really did. And all of us will be forever grateful for that.
Well, you were very, very kind, mate. Of all of those hyperbolic statements, which I appreciate and I thank you for, the thing that I will take to heart the most readily is party goer / hard drinker. That's all of my memories. So for if you listen to this in the US, you'll know what Hot Topic is. If you listen to it elsewhere, you may not. But essentially, Hot Topic is an incredibly cool retail chain in the United States of America, and it is essentially, an apparel and accessory store that's tied into music culture and into popular culture. I guess does that about sum it up, Mandy B?
Yeah, I mean, if you want a Batman shirt, you go to Hot Topic.
Right on.
That's where you go.
And if you're in the business of selling Batman shirts, you get an appointment to Hot Topic, say corporate offices, and meet Mandy Bardisbanian on reception. That's what happened to me.
Yes.
No, carry on.
To add on to what Sumner became in our every Comic-Con, every industry convention that we would go to, Sumner was the party planner. He would say, "Hey, we're gonna go to karaoke off the Vegas Strip." And literally, okay, so this is what's crazy about Sumner's abilities to bring a party together and to bring people together is that, vendors that sell to retailers, they usually aren't friends. They usually, don't hang out together. They don't usually go have drinks together because they're competitors and they, want to stay competitive together. But Sumner has this incredible ability to say, you competitor, we're all going to be friends now. Let's go drink. And it worked every time. And people who you never thought would end up being friends became best friends mostly because of Andrew Sumner.
Oh, well, yeah. I mean, mate, number one, I'm just going to make sure you're a weekly guest on this show from now on, because, the only time I hear this amount of sheer compliments is when I'm talking to my mum and dad, who are very, very fast with the compliments.
Well, here's the other problem, though. I haven't physically seen you in over a year and a half. Yeah. So, I need to bring all of this out of me. It's been all the Sumner compliments have been bottled up inside me. And I haven't been able to hug you in so long that it's just pouring out of me like a rainbow of love, I can't control it.
How appropriate, a rainbow of love, because indeed we're talking in June 2021, and it's Pride Month right here.
Happy Pride!
Happy Pride, my pal. And of course, one of the times that we did meet each other virtually rather than physically was a momentous moment for you, right, mate, within the last year.
Yes. So yeah, I got married during the pandemic, and Sumner was meant to be our officiant. He was going to fly, to the US and marry my wife and I in person, of course. And when the pandemic hit, we had to cancel our wedding like everyone else did. And we were going to just kind of put it off until, whenever was possible. But our wedding date was kind of coming up. It was about 2 weeks out from our original wedding date. And we said, you know what? Why don't we just get married anyway? Keep our original date, get married, gather everybody on Zoom, and then stream it on Twitch. So the great thing was that not only were we able to have all of our friends and family present with us on Zoom, but when we streamed it on Twitch, there were hundreds of other people that were able to attend our wedding that wouldn't have been able to in person. So it was actually even like a bigger and more grand event than it would have been in person. And Sumner was up at, 2:00 in the morning, your time?
Correct.
To marry us?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
And you did such a beautiful job.
Reverend Sumner of the Universal Life Church was up at 2 in the morning. Not me. My alter ego, my superhero alter ego was up at 2 in the morning. That's why I could do it. But it was kind of beautiful, to be honest. And I mean, it was, as you not to be honest, it was a very beautiful event.
It was beautiful. It was a beautiful event. You know, my wife and I said our vows. And,
and your vows are so lovely. They were so lovely.
It was gorgeous. And it was still cool because, you know, Sumner had to sign as our officiant. He had to sign our wedding or marriage license. So we got married in Texas, actually, because we were in Texas visiting my parents during the wedding, the whole thing. So we got our marriage license from Texas, sent it to Sumner in London, and then you sent it back to us in California, and then we had to send it back to Texas to be like official. It was just that license went all over the world. It was kind of crazy.
Mandy B, it was a truly beautiful day, and I was honoured to be involved and privileged to be involved. But I think your speeches, yours and Sonia's speeches, were so lovely. Your mom did such a fantastic job. Your witnesses were so cool. Some of our mutual friends, of course, just did such an amazing job. And I think it was one of the most feel-good, and I love feel-good events. If there's two people on the face of the earth who love feel-good events more than anyone else, it's you and me, right, mate? Do you know what I mean?
That's so true.
We're at the top of that feel-good list, right? And one of the many things I love about you is your supreme positivism, despite the many challenges you've faced in your life. And this is the way I feel. Challenges in life are there to be met head on. With the full force of positive thinking. That's how you conquer things. A lot of people, when I say this stuff, I get the sense sometimes of thinking, well, that's a load of fucking horseshit, mate. And it's just very easy to say that. But the truth is, if you've had struggle in your life, you know that one of the ways you get out the other side is through the power of positive thinking. And
absolutely.
I'm interested in talking to you about your journey, into, before we talk about career and passions and stuff, your journey through life and your journey, into self-knowledge and, knowing yourself from a, gender, sexual perspective. How was that for you, mate? What is your story?
That is a great question.
Because you're born and raised in one of the most conservative states in America, right?
Yes.
Texas.
Yes, I was. I mean, talk about a Southern upbringing. So my story it starts out pretty typical American little girl, and then it evolves into chaos. So I was
one of my favorite things, by the way, is dissolution into chaos. Chaos.
Yes.
All the most interesting stories start that way.
Absolutely. So I hopefully I won't disappoint. So I was born in Oklahoma, and I try not to claim Oklahoma because it's worse, but I mostly grew up in Texas, and I kind of lived all over. I grew up a little bit in Fort Worth, in Dallas, in San Antonio, other places, but I mostly grew up in Houston on a horse ranch. When I was little, I loved horses. I was really good at it. Everyone thought I was either going to be a horse trainer or a veterinarian because I was very skilled. I mean, I was a runner-up rodeo queen. I ran barrels, poles. I did everything you could possibly do in that field. And I was successful. I had a lot of blue ribbons under my belt. And my parents were extremely conservative. I was raised in a Christian house, and, by the time I was a teenager, I realized that was not for me. But, I was very involved in that growing up, Sunday school and youth group and the whole nine. And my father is actually an immigrant. He's Armenian, and his grandfather was in the United Nations. So he used to live all over the world. They lived in the Congo for a long time. They lived, in France. They lived everywhere. And my dad was the first one to come over to the US. But you would never know it meeting him unless you get told, because he wanted so badly to be an American, like so badly that he immediately got married. He immediately had kids. He made himself lose his accent. He forgot most of the languages he knew. He only retained French and English, but he spoke like 7 languages, when he was growing up, and he lost all of them. So, he really, really wanted to be an American. And my mom was very much an American. She also grew up on a ranch, total blue collar lifestyle. So that's how I was raised, in this very like, you work hard and you have a good life. And that's pretty much all you do, right? There's, you're not going to, they were very supportive of me, and they always told me I could do whatever I wanted to do in life, but a life outside of the norm was never, ever a consideration. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it's good. Yeah, that's very clear.
Great.
Yeah.
If I want to be a lawyer, great. But anything above that, it's like, it just wasn't a consideration. So, I had to work very hard in school. I was not a great student because I just wasn't very like naturally intellectual. I had to work really hard for grades, things like that. So other than horses, which I was good at, then in high school, I started working at a fashion boutique just because I wanted a job. So I started working at a fashion boutique, and I very quickly realized how much I loved fashion and like dressing people and making people feel good with what they wore. And I was also, at that time, very much still figuring out myself because, like I said, I was a very bullied kid. I'm actually, so for everyone out there who can't see me, I am 4'9". So I'm extremely short. I'm actually legally a midget, in case you didn't know that. Anything 4'10" and under is legally a midget. So there's that. But I am proportional. And I have this thing called Marcus Gunn jaw wink syndrome in my eye. So there's just a lot of things about me that were easy to pick on as a kid. So it took me a really long time to figure out who I was. And actually, I didn't figure out who I was until I was like 28 years old. So backing up again. So I did all the things you normally do. I dated boys. I thought that, that was the right thing to do. I never considered anything else. There were times that I definitely looked at girls and I thought, oh, she's pretty.
Yeah.
But I didn't think anything beyond that, and there was this one girl I remember in high school who I had this huge crush on. And she asked me to go on a date. And I clammed up. I got sweaty. I was like, I bet I turned white. And I was like, I can't. And I ran away. Like, I just could not handle and then, beyond that too, I had a really hard time making friends with girls.
Yeah. Like
making friends with girls, like even keeping like friendships with girls, maintaining friendships with girls. It was just always a problem for me. In college, actually, I had this best friend in college. We did everything together. We were inseparable. And when our friendship kind of blew up, as friendships do, I became like a stage 5 clinger. And I was like calling her constantly. I was like begging her to be my friend again. It was like this whole thing. I was probably like 19 years old, right? And it was only, years later that I realized it was because I was completely in love with her, and I didn't know that I actually I wanted to be with her. I didn't know it was a friend at the time. I didn't know that it was a friendship. Now I know it was because I wanted to date her. So, evolution, evolving from that, my last boyfriend, he was a great guy. He was super fun. We would play Dungeons and Dragons together. We would, sit there and play, World of Warcraft for hours, like with our computers next to each other. We had a wonderful time. We were best friends, but that's, for some reason, I don't know why, but maybe it was because I was in LA for a certain amount of time by then or what. But, moving to LA and seeing the freedom that people had and who they were and the acceptance that was freely given to pretty much everybody, in this city and the state. It was so freeing. And I started experimenting with who I was and what I liked and what I truly wanted, out of life and out of a partner. And I joined a dodgeball league that
Brilliant.
I told
fantastic, mate.
Yes. I told my friends that I just wanted to play a sport, but it was a literal lesbian dodgeball league. Yeah. So I knew what I was doing. I just wasn't telling myself or my friends what I was doing, but it was literally a lesbian dodgeball league. And once I started playing, it was like I couldn't stop it from there. Like the wheels were turning, and I was like, "That girl's hot. That girl's hot. That girl's hot." I want to.
And if you can dodge a wrench, you can dodge a bull. Yeah,
there it is. I love the reference. So, right, I never turned back after that. Once I allowed myself to accept what I really want and who I really was, then there was absolutely no turning back from there, because it was the best feeling to look at somebody and say, no, you actually are my person, you really are my person. And this is really who I am. This is really what I want. And it's a beautiful thing. There's there's a lot of LGBTQ plus people who, it takes them a long time, takes them years to learn it. I mean, there's an entire community on TikTok for late in life lesbians who just didn't realize it, for years. And all of us have a different story. My wife, she knew since the time she was like 5 years old, she was chasing girls, trying to kiss them, and that was her journey. My journey took a little bit longer, but I will tell you, there's no better feeling than finally realizing and admitting to yourself who you are.
And it's so wonderful as your friend, see you so happy and in the zone with your own life. It's a great thing to observe, like to witness that sense of self that you have. I mean, you've always been an incredibly positive, can-do kind of person, but to see you apply that metric to that journey in your own life, I just think is a brilliant thing.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, it definitely feels good. The interesting part about it was, there were certain people that were extremely supportive, and there were certain people that were not. And the people that were not supportive are the ones that I would have expected to be supportive. So, for example, yeah, I mean, so for example, there were friends, like best friends that I actually lost when I came out, they didn't specifically say it was because I came out, but it was because they were like, well, we just can't relate to you anymore. And I'm like, I'm still the same person. I'm just dating the same sex. Like, I don't. And so that was odd. And then, there were some gay men in my life that I lost respect for as well, because they were like, but, you can't, suddenly be gay. And it's like, but you're gay. You should know that this is not like, it's different for everyone. It was a very interesting thing. And I really found out who my friends were, whenever I came out, really who cared and who didn't.
That is very interesting. So as we mentioned a second ago, it's June, it's Pride. What does Pride mean to you?
Oh, it's such a beautiful thing. I mean, this could go on forever. So I will try to be. The important thing to note first and foremost is that Pride means something different for everyone, right? And whatever Pride means for you is what Pride should mean, right? So the biggest thing is pride in who you are, accepting who you are, not only accepting, but loving who you are, living your most authentic and true self, being everything that you could possibly want to be, and not being scared to be that, no matter what that means for anybody else. There's a lot of things happening right now, a lot of conversations being had right now when it comes to pronouns, when it comes to gender identity, when it comes to sexual identity. There was a thing on the internet I saw just the other day where a non-binary person is still identifying as a lesbian. And there are certain lesbians saying, you're non-binary, so you can't be a lesbian. You're a non-binary person who just wants to date girls. And it's like, no, no. What does it matter? The semantics don't matter. What matters is how someone wants to identify. That's all that matters. And your job, your only job, is to respect however that person wants to identify. Whatever makes them feel their best and their most authentic self is the only thing you have to accept. That's it. It doesn't affect your life regardless, right? Like, it doesn't affect you. You just have to be respectful of the way they need to live their lives to be authentic. Yeah. That's it, right? And so there's a lot of things that even the community is still learning, especially when it comes to pronouns. A lot of us, that's a whole other conversation too, is as far as like, okay, there's a huge difference between sexuality and gender identity. Huge difference, right? I mean, you can be born you can be assigned male at birth, and later in life you're like, hey, I'm a lesbian. Assigned male at birth, and you're like, I'm gay. I like boys, right? And then you can identify as a gay man, and then you come out later as a transgender female, and if you still, it doesn't mean you're now a lesbian. It's because you were gay, whenever you were identifying as a male, now means that, you are a female, but you still, your sexual preference is men. So there's a lot of things that the community is still learning. There's a lot of things that we collectively as a world need to get behind and just shut up and let people be who they are. So pride means a lot of that. Pride means means being your most authentic self and also thanking and recognizing those that came before us and paved the way to make this happen. I mean, as most people listening to this will know, Pride was started by Black women, by Black trans women. And that is just now being recognized. They are just now getting the spotlight and the recognition they deserve. But it took so long because even back then, trans people, especially Black trans women, were not even accepted by the gay community.
Yeah.
Isn't that crazy to think about?
Well,
gay...
Of course, because you're layering racism into everything, systemic racism as well as everything else.
Yes. I mean, it all kind of ties together, right? But it's absolutely shocking. So pride means, at its most basic point, taking pride, being your most authentic self, and giving thanks and recognition to those that came before us, and continuing to fight for the rights and the needs and everything else for the future generations as well, because we still have a lot of work to do. There's still so much more to get out there. I mean, Black trans women are still being murdered every single, in droves every year. And
sure.
That needs to be focused on.
I couldn't agree more, and I think the reality is it's for me, Pride is a celebration of everybody's right to be whoever they want to be, and everybody's right to be accepted as being whoever they want to be, irrespective of any kind of label that can be thrown out.
When it comes to the entertainment industry, you've definitely seen we've seen a huge surge of LGBTQ plus characters, storylines. Things being put out there in the last 2 years, really. I mean, we've seen a big surge. For example, Disney just put their first, queer characters finally into their films. I think it was at the end of Beauty and the Beast, the live action. I think the candlestick or someone was gay. It was amazing. And it was a moment. It wasn't as big of a moment as we all would have liked, but a moment, right? And another thing I do want to point out, though, in the entertainment industry is still this idea that queer films can't hold their own or make their return on investment. That is still a very big problem when it comes to, even though, a lot of, like you just said, a lot of people in the entertainment industry are very open and ready for it financially. They don't know if they're going to see an ROI for that.
Yeah.
So, we saw, one major film years ago, which was Brokeback Mountain.
The fantastic Brokeback Mountain. Brilliant film.
Yeah, that was the biggest, budget for a queer film pretty much ever at that point. I think I can pretty definitely say it was the biggest budget for a queer film ever at that point.
There's no two ways about it, mate. That's a fact. Yeah.
Yeah, and it was a wonderful movie, and it definitely means a lot to the community, but it was rooted in pure heartache. It was rooted in pure hatred, and the storyline, although it was again important for our time, it's not as relevant today because as queer folks, we want to see positivity. We want to see queer characters be in a movie or a TV show and it not even be addressed. I want to see Laverne Cox play a trans role where her transness is never even mentioned. You know what I mean? I just want her to be a woman playing a female character. That's all I want. That's all any of us want. And then last year, I will tell you this, we finally got the lesbian movie we always wanted. It was, I'm blanking on the name right now for some reason, but it's Kristen Stewart and that really awesome actress.
Oh, mate, that film's fucking awesome.
Yes, it's called The Perfect Time.
It's the Christmas movie, right? We were talking about that. Do you remember over the Yuletide period? That's a great film. Season,
the most beautiful season.
Yeah.
Something like, I don't know why I'm blanking right now, but oh my God, that movie was good. And not only was it extremely well made, extremely well acted. Oh, the happiest season.
Happiest season.
It was, they put a giant budget behind it. I mean, Kristen Stewart, like, are you kidding me? She must have gotten paid God knows how much to do this movie. And it was beautifully done. Absolutely. The one thing I will say though, is some of my friends were not happy with it. And why? Because one of the main themes of this movie is still that, one of the characters had to come out of the closet to her family, and her family didn't like it.
Okay. Yeah.
And so a lot of my friends were like, that's not the story I want to see. I don't want to see people struggling to come out anymore. I want them to just be out. And I get that. But at the same time, it's progress. A huge studio gave a ridiculously huge budget to a lesbian movie. Let's thank them and then keep going.
Yeah. I think that's true. In fact, and now that you're saying that, it comes to mind that this is exactly the conversation that you and I had over Christmas. Exactly that, and I think that's true. I think it absolutely is progress, and I think it is a beautiful film. And you got to take the steps right on any of these journeys. And something you touched upon, while it is true that working in the media, you're perhaps on the sharp end of seeing, acceptance for a variety of different life elements. What's also true, of course, is that the media is absolutely riven with grade A fucking total hypocrisy.
Yes.
So that's all well and good, but money talks with everybody. So the media is very good at going, well, yeah. I mean, if you think about all the kind of horseshit Hollywood speeches you see from people when they're accepting awards for whatever it is, yeah, and the way a lot of actors and filmmakers carry themselves when it comes to the matter of being actually nominated for something, and they have this cultivated indifference, and awards don't really matter. It's all about the art and it's all about the work. But behind the scenes, they're scrabbling around with their PR managers, trying to hustle for that award and win it, and they desperately want to win, even though that statement you can't really, art isn't like a race where in a race, the 100 meters, somebody wins, and somebody comes.
Yeah.
When it comes to two performances or two great performances, how do you pick between the two? You can't. You just can't do that. So there is so much hypocrisy that abounds within the media at the same time, and it's worth mentioning that at this, because I wouldn't want this to become a complete media Hollywood love fest. Oh yeah, everybody's so progressive. Everybody's very good at portraying themselves as being progressive, but you and I certainly, in and out of the media or media adjacent, we do absolutely know a lot of people who are genuinely open-minded, are trying to move society forward in a positive and acceptive way. And my view is, it doesn't matter whether you're a fucking Hollywood producer, or whether you're, a road worker or a foreperson on a construction site, wherever the message is coming from, acceptance is absolutely the key. That's what's disturbed me a lot about politics, not just in the US, but in the UK over the last 2-3 years, where we've got this terrible regressive conservatism going on.
We've had kind of a crazy year. Crazy 4 years over here in the US, if you haven't heard. Yeah. We had a bit of a time.
Before we get into your career, there's a really interesting thing, I think, that your lovely wife, Sonia, does, and that she's part of. And can you talk a bit about the whole queer boy band thing?
Yes, I would love to.
I think this is fucking awesome. And these guys are supremely talented.
Thank you so much for letting me brand drop my wife's band. So
that's what we're here for, mate. To me.
Yes. So my wife, Sonia, she is also a singer by night. She's in an LGBTQ plus choir here in the city. She's in other cover bands, but she had this amazing idea to form a all queer vocal group called Boy Band. And it's boy with an I, because boy with an I, for anyone who doesn't know, is also like another name for like an androgynous lesbian, right? Or androgynous queer person. So Boy Band is literally 5 people of all various like gender identities and sexualities. They represent the spectrum of the queer universe, and they are right now a cover band only, and they cover songs from popular boy bands, past and present. They cover songs from LGBTQ plus allies. And they definitely have choreography mixed in there. So
the choreography is Amazing.
Yes.
It's just something to behold. It's fantastic.
It is wonderful. They have an incredible choreographer as well. And they're actually starting to work on originals too. So they're going to start, hopefully their first single will be out by the end of this year. But
so how can people contact you again, Mandy B?
Oh, so you can find me at Mandy Bardisbanian. I'm sure my last name will be in the show notes, right? So my last name is a little crazy, but you can find me at Mandy Bardisbanian on all platforms. And if you are so inclined, please follow Boy Band at Queer Boy Band on all platforms as well.
Yeah, and it really is great stuff, great epic stuff.
I'm their manager and social media, like, whatever. So I'm in charge of making them successful. So please help me do that.
Yeah. So check out the show notes. You really won't be disappointed. That they do amazing work. And so Mandy B, let's talk about your career journey for a second. So let's reel back to your college years and your plan for yourself. How did you go from there to when I met you, when you were on the reception at Hot Topic? What then happened, which I think is a really interesting story.
Do you want that? Do you want like the crazy story? Do you want that?
Of course.
Okay. This is a crazy story. Are y'all ready for it? Because I mean, it's every time I tell it, I mean, people's faces just drop. They're like, how? And I'm like, I don't know. Okay. So here's the beginning of the story. Like I said earlier, I grew up on a horse ranch. Everyone expected me to be a veterinarian or horse trainer. And when I started working at a fashion boutique in high school, I fell in love with clothes. And I was like, I want to do this. I don't know what this means, but I want to do this. So after high school, I went to a fashion school called the International Academy of Design and Technology, which is in San Antonio, Texas, because it's the cheapest place to have gone to college. Of course, I would have loved to go to Parsons in New York or, somewhere like that. But unfortunately, no one expected this to actually be my career. So no one wanted to spend a ton of money on it until they were sure. So I went to a very, very cheap college that I will tell you right now prepared me maybe for 3% of my actual career. I mean, extremely little in the actual teaching, but it's a bachelor's degree. Cool. So I went to college there and I did a ton of photo shoots, fashion shows. I was designing and creating collections like every season or for like a new fashion show, or, if there was a photo shoot idea that my friends had, then we would, I would design something for it. And then we would do like a random photo shoot. It was a lot of trade for trade back then, right? Because San Antonio is not a place for artists. So if you want, to kind of come up in the world, a photographer, you contact your photographer friend and say, hey, I've got this new dress. Do you want to come shoot it? And then, hey, yeah, I've got a model who wants more shots for her portfolio. Okay. Do you know a makeup artist who needs some, some shots, whatever. And we would just all get together and for free, put our skills together and do stuff. So at that time, I really thought that I was going to be the next Alexander McQueen. I thought that I was going to be a couture fashion designer, doing Paris Week fashion show or Paris Fashion Week shows and, and having like a super fancy like studio loft in New York that people would come by in my design studio and I would dress them for the Oscars or whatever. That was what I was working towards. At the same exact time, I was a hardcore emo kid, like hardcore. I mean, like I said, I was still figuring myself out and the emo kids kind of accepted me. So I just dived right into that world. So Hot Topic was a place that I would go. For everyone who doesn't know, Hot Topic is in most malls in the country. I believe there's like 700 stores around the country. And so almost everyone has one. And it was a place where you could go that people had colored hair. They had tattoos. They loved Harry Potter. They loved the same things that you did. So going to Hot Topic wasn't just to shop. It was also to meet friends and to find people that were like-minded and to feel good about who you were and what you were into. Like that was kind of what Hot Topic was for a lot of people, including myself. So after college, I literally didn't even go to graduation. I was like, if I don't leave this town now, which is San Antonio, if I don't leave, I'm never going to. I'm going to end up being one of these people who just stays here forever and blah, blah, blah. So I packed up my car And I moved to Los Angeles. I came to LA and I had $600. By the time I got here, I had $600 in my pocket. I had no job. I had nowhere to live. I didn't know anybody. And I had no idea what the heck I was going to do. So thankfully, on the first night I was here, I went to a bar in Hollywood and I met these guys. And I was like, hey, how's it going? I'm new here, whatever. They were really nice to me. And I was like, they were like, you don't have a place to live? And I was like, no. And they were like, just come crash on our couch, like whatever. So I ended up living in a 1-bedroom apartment with 3 boys for the first month that I lived here. Brilliant. And that was a gross experience, but it was necessary. And so I was there for about a month, and during that time,
was that when the inception of your lesbianism, do you think?
It might have solidified it. It might have been like, okay.
That was just a joke, mate. I didn't expect you to say yes.
I mean, the nasty things boys do in bathrooms is astounding to me, but that's another story. Okay, so
it is not astounding to me. I totally get where you're coming from.
Exactly. You raised one too, so come on. So during that time, I was trying to get any job that I could, because I was like, okay, I know I'm not going to immediately become this world-renowned fashion designer. And so I know I'm just going to have to get any job that I can so that I can work my way up, right? And get myself a name and meet people here and blah, blah, blah. So I was looking for a bartending job because I had bartended through college. And I was like, okay, I can do that. There's tons of bars in LA. I went to every bar in Hollywood. I swear, I went to every single one. And most of the time, they would tell me, in order for someone to get a job bartending in Hollywood, you either had to know somebody or someone had to die. That was the only way you were going to get a job as a bartender in Hollywood. I could not find anything. I could not find a single job. So it was about a month in, and I was completely out of money. I had already asked my parents for a little bit to kind of sustain me. And I still didn't have a job. The boys were kind of sick of a girl living with them. So I really needed to get a job. And so I decided that I said, okay, what are the two places that I want to work at the most? One of them was this designer that I knew was somewhere in downtown LA called Sick Fuck. And I think it's SYKFUK, something like that, Sick Fuck. And it was this cool emo designer. So I was like, I either want to work there or I want to work for Hot Topic, right? And by the way, I had been emailing Hot Topic and applying for jobs this entire time. And I applied for the mailroom. I had applied for the warehouse. They were not getting back to me. So I decided one day, I had literally $20 in my pocket. Okay. It was my last $20. And I knew that if I didn't get a job in the next few days, I would have to go home. There was nothing else I would be able to do. So I decide, okay, I'm going to put a little bit of money in my gas tank. I think I would put $5 in my gas tank just so I could get somewhere, right? And I went to go find Sick Fuck in downtown LA. So I look up the address, on their website, whatever. And I go down there and I park, and I don't know what I'm doing. I mean, I didn't know you had to pay for parking in downtown LA. I didn't know you had to, all of these things you don't think about. So I think I had to pay for parking. So I go into this building, and I'm terrified of elevators. I have a really big fear of elevators, and this elevator was terrifying, but I took the elevator up to, I think the 5th floor or something. And none of the doors had numbers on them. So I was just knocking on doors, trying to find this office, and no one was answering the doors. No one was there. So I was like, okay, fine. I guess I'll, leave, but again, I'm terrified of elevators. So I took the stairwell down to go back to my car. Turns out when I got in the stairwell, all the doors to the floors were locked. Every single one of them. The one I was on was locked. The one, the 4th floor was locked. 3rd floor was locked. And the 1st floor was pitch black. There was no light. There was no window. Pitch black. So I am freaking out because how the hell am I going to get out of the stairwell? So I start banging on doors. No one's answering. Thankfully, I had cell phone reception. So I called my dad. I'm bawling my eyes out. And I'm like, Dad, I'm stuck in a stairwell in downtown LA. He's like, what building are you in? I don't know what building I'm in. So he's like, you need to call the fire department right now. So I call the fire department, right? And this whole time I'm freaking out. I'm 23 years old and I'm stuck in the stairwell. Still no one's answering the doors. So finally about, 45 minutes later, the firefighters show up. They open the door to the stairwell and they're cracking up laughing at me. They're all they're like 20 of them. And they are doubling over with laughter at this like little 23-year-old girl who got herself stuck in a freaking stairwell. Like, are you kidding me? So I explained to them that I was scared of elevators, blah, blah. They ride back down with me. And then I was out. Okay. So at this point, this is really, really important. At this point, it's about 2:30 in the afternoon. All right. So I am pissed off. I'm out of money. I'm hungry. And I'm mad. So I'm like, fuck it. I'm going. Can I curse on this?
Of course. Yeah. Of course you can. Yeah.
Cool. Fuck it. I'm going to Hot Topic. So I find the Hot Topic corporate office. I don't even know how I found it somehow, the address. And I go to a gas station. I put like 10 more bucks into my gas tank. And I drive to the Hot Topic corporate office, which is about 45 minutes outside of LA. I get there. Again, it's very important. I get there about 3:45. Okay. I go in and
we've now entered the part of your story where I can visualize exactly where you are at this moment in time.
Yes. So I walk into the office and there is a wall because there's a reception desk and behind the reception desk, there's a wall and you have to have a card key to get in behind that wall. So I go up to the receptionist and she's like, hey, can I help you? And I said, hi, my name is Mandy. I had like my portfolio with me, my resume, like in a folder, like I was ready. And I was like, my name is Mandy. I've applied online to work here, a bunch, but I haven't heard back. But I literally have to work here. I can't leave without a job. I have to work here. And she goes, that's okay. Hang on. So she calls her boss out to meet me. And her name is Lisa. She's the office services.
Who I know.
Yes.
Yeah, Lisa, right.
Yes. She is the office services manager. So she comes out and she shakes my hand. She says, hi, who are you? And I said, my name is Mandy. I just graduated from fashion school and moved here and I really want to work here and I can't leave without a job. So she says, just give me a minute. So she goes back to the back for about 20 minutes. I assume she's talking to HR. Like now I know that she was talking to HR, asking them if it was okay if she talked to this girl that was, that walked in. She comes back out and she says, okay, this is not an interview. We're just going to go talk for a little bit. We're just going to go talk. We're just going to have a chat. So we go into this room, one of the rooms, in front of the lobby.
Yeah.
And we're there for about an hour and a half. And she's just asking me all about my life and what I want to do for a living and, my struggles moving to LA and all of this. So by the time we're done, she says, thank you so much for coming in. Obviously, this was not an interview, but good luck with the rest of your life. Right. And I'm like, oh, my God, I'm going to have to go home. I'm not going to make it. I'm not going to be anything. My dreams are crushed, blah, blah, blah. Right. So I leave. I go back to the 1-bedroom apartment with 3 boys. The next day, I get a phone call from HR at Hot Topic saying Lisa Holstein would like to offer you the job as a receptionist at the Hot Topic corporate office. And I swear to God, it was the best day of my life.
Yeah.
Now, here's where it gets really crazy. Are you ready? So
I'm all in on this story, which, by the way, I've never heard before.
Yeah. Oh my God. Really? That's
heard
crazy.
it before.
Okay. So here's the crazy part. I started my first day working there. I was a receptionist, like I said, at the Hot Topic corporate office. And I walk in and I meet my fellow receptionist. So there's 2 receptionists at the front desk. And her name was Sam. And I meet her and she goes, you're the girl. And I was like, I'm okay. What do you mean? She goes, here's what's wild about this is that they had one receptionist. They were looking for a second one. She leaves the office at 3:30 p.m. every single day. And the receptionist that I met when I walked in was a fill-in receptionist because I walked in at 3:45.
Yeah, right.
Sam told me that if I had walked in 15 minutes earlier, she would have turned me away and she never would have called Lisa up to the front.
Yeah.
So if I hadn't got stuck in that damn stairwell, I never, ever, ever would be where I am today. And I still can't believe, I still get chills every time I think about it.
That's it. That's your sliding doors moment, isn't it? You know what I mean?
It is.
Yeah, that's absolutely, that's your low key, like branching, like time variance authority future moment. Do you know what I mean? That's incredible. It's the twilight zone of it all.
It's wild. It's absolutely wild. And I never would be where I am today. I never, I wouldn't have the career that I have. And I could not be more thankful to everybody who helped me along the way, from those 3 boys who let me crash on their couch to Lisa Holstein, to, the receptionist that was filling in. The firefighters that got me out. All of that is just, there's so much to be thankful for. And that is why that story is mostly why I believe so strongly that literally everything happens for a reason. I don't, I'm not a religious person. I don't believe in destiny per se, but I do believe that everything happens for a reason, and that there's always something to either learn or gain from anything that happens in life. I think also, I think it's an illustration of something about your character that I recognized from when I first met you, which is you've got that stamp on the accelerator, guns blazing, forward momentum. You're always gonna do it and get it done. And there's a lot of people throughout the course of that day and those things that happen to you. There's a lot of people that go, "Fuck this noise! I'm going to a bar and getting shit faced." That's what I would call the Andrew Sumner response in that moment. Whereas you were just onward, and that's what you were like throughout your life. That's what you're like in your personal life. You're very focused on your objectives, and you don't get discouraged. And I think that's like not being discouraged and having fortitude is one of your superpowers, I think, mate. Yeah, no, that's absolutely true. I will say though, it's my biggest strength and my biggest weakness, because to be as ambitious as I am, I'm a Slytherin through and through. Obviously, ambition is what drives me, obviously, and it's what wakes me up every morning, right? And to that drive to never have enough. I always want more, right? I always want a bigger team under me, or I always want to be working on a bigger IP, or, whatever it might be. But at the same time, that also can mean that I can come across very abrasive or very demanding.
I don't know what you're talking about. What are you yammering on about here, Mandy? I don't know. I don't recognize this person you're describing.
I appreciate that. It is definitely a fine balance, and something that I've had to learn, especially having employees. You have to really learn how to balance that. And one of my biggest weaknesses as a leader is being able to take my hands off of a project and let my employees, do what they do. Because I'm one of those people that if I feel like I'm not doing it, then it's not getting done right. But, at the end of the day, you have to spread the work, or else nothing's going to get done. So that's,
No, but if we all walked into life fully formed, 360-degree wise, completely aware individuals, the world would be a very boring place. It would be like Brave New World. It would be like completely anodyne. And actually, the struggle, for self-completion, and the struggle to interact with others in society, those life journeys that we all have, that's why the world is an interesting place. Sure enough, they open doors on terrible, dark things as well. But the reality is if we were all these kind of homogenized, anodyne, fully formed individuals, peaceful and content with ourselves, the world would be fucking boring, and there'd be no drama, there'd be nothing. You know what I mean? There'd be no Harry Potter, there'd be no Lord of the Rings, there'd be no Shakespeare, there'd be no Titus Andronicus, there'd be no Spider-Man, because what's the use? What would be the point of drama in a world where there's no conflict whatsoever? So
you're absolutely right.
It's an essential part of the human experience, of human condition.
You couldn't be more right. One of the things that is the hardest in my life that I used to have a hard time talking about, but thankfully it's healing. So I was at Hot Topic for about 7 years, and I was very blessed, for lack of another word, in my career there. And I rose very quickly. I got promoted very quickly. I had incredible mentors.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it was very quick, but I had incredible mentors that taught me so much. I had, 3 different main mentors that all taught me very different things about the business. But, there was this startup company that heavily pursued me, heavily pursued me. And I kept saying, no, thank you. I'm very happy. I don't want to leave. And they just kept hounding me. So I finally said, okay, you know what? Maybe I need to try. Maybe this is the universe saying, everything happens for a reason and I need to try this. And they, what they were doing was very different and unique. And I'm not going to name it just because it's hard for me to speak positively about it. So I'm not going to name what it is. But, so I left. I left Hot Topic and I made the decision to go to the startup company. And it was horrible for me in many, many ways. But 7 months later, they decided that they did not need me and I was laid off. And I will tell you, that was probably one of the worst days of my life. I could not even get in my car to drive home because I was hysterically crying. I actually met one of my now best friends at that job. And we both say that the only good thing that came out of that job was us meeting each other and becoming best friends. But, so he was just outside with me for like 2 hours while I was bawling on his shoulder. And I thought my career was over. I thought I'd screwed everything up. I was like, Hot Topic's not going to take me back. They don't need me anymore. Like it was the worst day of my life. And I went through like a little bit of a depression for a couple of weeks. And then, I picked myself back up and tried to find anything I could. The sad part about it too is the same week they laid me off, the exact same week, Disney acquired Fox. So all of my Fox friends were getting laid off. And Warner Brothers was consolidating all of their, external IPs. So a lot of my friends at like Cartoon Network and all those other places were getting laid off. So all of a sudden, not only myself, but all these other people that I knew in the industry were looking for jobs. And we were all looking for the same ones.
Yeah.
So it was absolutely terrifying. And at the time, I thought there's nothing good that can come out of this. There's nothing to learn from this situation. It's terrible. It sucks. But then I found my home at Legion M. And not only is it an incredible team, and the company itself is doing something that no one has ever done before, but I have full autonomy to take the business wherever I think it needs to go. The company is growing like crazy. There's an exciting thing happening almost every day. And I can now look back and recognize that I needed to be laid off for several reasons. So I'm going to try to be concise about this because I know we're running out of time. But number one, at my time at Hot Topic, I was in a very lucky position where I was successful a lot. As far as my businesses were successful, things were going very, very well in most of the departments that I was in. And that's not normal for any career. I mean, you're supposed to see highs and lows in your numbers, right? And that wasn't really happening for me. I hadn't really seen a low yet. So I was getting all this praise. I was getting, all these job offers. I was really constantly peaking. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
And finally, I was not needed. And not only did that experience humble the crap out of me, but I needed to know what that felt like. I needed to know what failure felt like because it really hadn't happened before. So now I get to not only humble myself a little bit, which I definitely needed, but I now am going to be more prepared for the next failure. And that is going to happen. It happens to all of us. There's going to be a next failure. There's going to be a next failure. There's going to be 5, 10, 15, 100 more after that. And now I will be more prepared for it and I'll handle it much better than I did previously. So although it was terrible, again, everything happens for a reason, right?
Well said, mate. As you know, I could not agree more with that sentiment. And for those who don't know, listening to this, can you just fill everybody in on what it is that Legion M does and what makes them so unusual?
Absolutely.
I know, but it's an interesting thing for you to talk about.
So Legion M is a film, TV, anything else that we come up with that we think is cool production company. So we are an entertainment company like everybody else, but the catch is that we are literally owned by fans. So not in the UK, so I have to be very careful with this. UK, you cannot invest, and I am not advertising to you to invest. But but in the US, people can literally equity invest into our company and own stock and shares, actual stock and shares in our company. We are pre-IPO. So that means we are not tradable on the stock market, but you have a stake in our company, and you literally get a voice in what we do. So we've been around for 5 years now. We just had our 5th anniversary, and we have about 150,000 people in our community. And we have almost 30,000 investors in our company. So in the community, you can join for free. If you can't invest for whatever reason, totally fine. You can join Legion M for free as a member. And you literally get to tell us what you want, what you want us to do, what you want us to make, what you want us to focus on. For example, we go to Sundance Film Festival every year. And every year we try to find a new movie to buy or be involved in. So we have this thing called Film Scout, which we also call a game. It's an app on your phone, and we have all of the movies that are going to be at Sundance every year. So we have the title image, we have the log line of every movie, and you can rank them to tell us what you are most interested in seeing. And if you're at Sundance, then you have another platform to be able to say, okay, I saw these movies, and here's how I would rank them. And based off of that, the first year we did that, one of the highest ranking films was Memory: The Origins of Alien, which is a documentary about the making of the movie Alien. And we saw it and we were like, this is really cool. So we bought the distribution rights for that film, and it did extremely well. And that was based off of our community telling us what they wanted us to focus on. Last year, there was a film called Save Yourselves. Yeah. That is about these two hipsters that end up being in the middle of the alien apocalypse. It's a really funny hipster comedy. And that was at the top of the list last year. So we focused on it. And we partnered with Bleecker Street Films, and we distributed that movie. And now it's on Hulu, by the way. If you haven't seen it yet, please go to Hulu and watch Save Yourselves. So then, there are other times that our community will suggest something. So, for example, and I'm so excited to be able to talk to you about this, we kept seeing this meme pop up on our Facebook group. We have a members-only Facebook group where people can talk. And there was a meme about this guy named Robert Smalls, Captain Robert Smalls. And if you don't know who that is, he was a enslaved man who stole a Confederate warship and ended up, fighting for freedom and freeing a bunch of other enslaved people. He ended up serving in Congress for 5 years, and then he ended up buying his previous master's plantation and taking care of his previous master's wife until she passed away. I mean, just this incredible American hero. And we kept seeing that pop up, like, okay, this needs to be a movie. This needs to be a movie. So, then one of our investors in Legion M said, hey, I'm actually a screenwriter, and I have a script about Captain Robert Smalls. And we read it, and it's amazing. And now we are working to make that into a feature movie that is, Yeah. So it's really incredible. There's a lot of ways to be involved. We had one investor who he had we came out with a movie last year called Arch Enemy, starring Joe Manganiello. And we need a very specific kind of car for this movie. And so we said, does anybody know where we can get this car? And one of our investors said, yeah, I have that car. You can use it. So not only was his car used as the feature car in the movie, but he was also in the movie as well.
Oh, great. That's fantastic, mate. I love it. I love the democratization of the fan response to a movie and just involving all of that and involving that, love and that interest in the process. I think it's Absolutely. A great thing.
I hope you're editing this because I'm talking a lot.
Oh, well, no, I knew you would talk a lot, and this is why I wanted you on the show, mate. Do you know what I mean? And the great thing about having you on is I don't have to talk as much, so I'm completely into this, man.
Well, for anybody still listening, thank you for still being here.
So to wrap up, you're at Legion M. You're enjoying the gig you've got now. You see a lot of potential in what you're doing, and I know that you enjoy it. When you look back on your journey to date, both your personal journey and your career journey, what are the things that stand out to you as the highlights thus far?
Oh, wow. Okay, so, a couple things come to mind. Number one, I will say, was when I was at Hot Topic, and we found the trend in licensed beauty. So back whenever I was the buyer for beauty at Hot Topic, the only people really doing a sprinkling of licensed beauty products was Sephora. They came out with I think 2 different Disney collections for makeup at the time. And I was like, I think there's something here. I think there's a way to do this that's more affordable, right? So, and in other IPs, it doesn't have to be Disney, right? It doesn't have to be Disney princess to be a makeup collection. So at the time, one of our biggest properties at Hot Topic was Supernatural. And if you don't know what Supernatural it is a CW show that ran for 16 seasons about these 2 brothers who fight demons. So it is a very masculine leaning IP, but the fan base is teenage girls, right? And I loved that show. I still love it. And I was like, you know what? This is going to sound crazy, but I want to do a Supernatural eyeshadow palette. I want to do an eyeshadow palette. So I told my boss, and she was like, I don't know, but okay. I mean, how are you going to do an eyeshadow palette about 2 guys who fight demons? I was like, wait for it. So I went to my my vendors, and I told them what I wanted to do. And I took the style guide from Warner Brothers, and I pulled out all these assets, and I was like, here's how I want it to look. And I really designed the whole thing with my vendor. And it was perfect. It told a story. It made sense. I thought it was gorgeous. So it finally comes into stores. And I'm so nervous because I'm like, we spent so much money on this. If it doesn't work, I'm going to get fired. The first week it was out, it sold thousands of units. Thousands. And we all went, oh my God, what is this? I mean, it was so much more above what we could have ever expected. And that was the moment that we realized, okay, there is a trend here. These customers are being underserved. There are teenage girls out there trans women, non-binary people who want makeup that has to do with their fandom. And then we started going, and we got on a good cadence. Along with that, we were having a lot of success with a lot of different IPs and cosmetics. And Star Wars, Lucasfilm, kept saying no to me. They were the one IP, the one studio that was like, no, we're not ready for that. No, we don't know what that would look like. We don't want Star Wars makeup. And finally, they called me and they said, okay, we're ready. We want you to do this. And so I made a Millennium Falcon eyeshadow palette. And to this day, it's one of my proudest moments. I mean, really. I mean, there's a lot of things. I'm really not
surprised. So I remember that eyeshadow palette is just inspired. Yeah. And I remember how excited you were about Supernatural. What about on a personal level, when you look back over the last decade of working, 15 years of working?
It's really interesting that you asked that question, because it's really hard for me to separate my work from my personal life. I that's always been a huge problem for me, an actual issue, because I don't know how to do that. I don't know how to have a personal life and how to have a work life. It doesn't happen for me. I literally work constantly. Sonia loves the shit out of me, but at the same time, if we're watching a movie or a TV show, and I say, oh, that would look good on a t-shirt, she's like, shut up. But that's what I do. That's my job, So, again, it's not for me to to look that. But I think one of the things that I am the most proud of is being open to falling in love with someone that other people in my life would not approve of, and totally accepting that and being okay with it. I think that might be one of the most beautiful things, because, it's very unfortunate, and this goes for a lot of people's stories, but, a lot of my mom's family stopped talking to me and her because I came out as gay. I lost some friends because of it. There was just some interesting, hard things that happened, but regardless of the hard things, I mean, the best feeling in the world is to be completely and utterly in love. And I am lucky enough to have done that, and to have it be real and true and deep. So that's probably one of my most proudest things.
Well said, mate, because that is the hardest of hard agrees from me. I think that's a very profound statement you just made, but I completely agree with your sentiment and with your thought there. And I've got, before we go, one coda question, something we haven't touched. And it's going to be tough for you to give a brief answer about this, mate. But this is...
Okay, I'll try.
Okay, but it's just a brief answer. Tell me in about 60 seconds about your love of dogs.
Oh my God, this is going to be so hard. Okay, I love dogs. I have dogs. I have 2 dogs. I have a little dog and I have a blind dog, and I foster dogs, and I love fostering dogs, and I want to keep all of them, but I don't, because then I can foster more dogs, and dogs are great, and you should donate to all the dog charities you can.
Yeah,
I think 20 seconds. I think I nailed that.
Yeah, you totally nailed it, mate. You totally nailed it. So this has been a monumental episode of Hard Agree. I'm Andrew Sumner, and it has been my pleasure to listen to the life and the journey of my good friend, Mandy Bardisbanian. Thanks for joining me today, mate.
Thank you so much for having me. It has been an honor, a pleasure, and I hope to talk to all of you out there. Find me on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook at Mandy Bardisbanian, or find me at a Comic-Con.
Yeah.
In next year. Let's do it. Let's meet up.
Hopefully standing next to me, because I'll be at Comic-Con as well. Fingers crossed.
I will be attached at the hip to Sumner. So just wherever you see him, I'll be right next to him.
Mate, thank you for joining me. You've been listening to Hard Agree. This episode was edited by John Horsley and Kenrick Regan, and our theme music, Golden, was written and performed for this show by Liverpool's finest band, Denio. Hard Agree is a production of the Spoilerverse and myself, Andrew Sumner.